how do you kind of define resilience? Before we dive in deeper, I think it would just help to level set on that specific term.
The one I work with is the one most authors are using, and it's our ability to go through adversity and come out even stronger. And there's a few pieces to this, right? So we're going through adversity. It can be something acute, which is often what we think about, but we have to keep in mind it could also be something chronic, like a pandemic, for example. Okay. And coming out even stronger refers to that we're learning and there's a growth mindset aspect to it. And so in workplace psychology, for example, that does apply to us as individuals, to the teams, and to the organization.
Thank you for that lens. And to maybe go even deeper, the name of your book is The Resilience Plan, a strategic approach to optimizing your work performance and mental health. What was it that made you want to apply that resilience lens that we just described and apply it specifically to the corporate world and to the business professional?
It's everyone I worked with. It's whether it was in my psychology practice, where I mostly end up working with professionals and leaders in my executive coaching work, and in my keynote speaking. I tend to just work with individuals who get so much done on a daily basis at work and in their personal life, for that matter. And they just get to a point where they need something to give them an edge. And what they don't realize is they can't just wing self-care or will themselves to be resilient. They really need to be strategic. But they have developed expertise in such complex areas that it's almost as if they assume that they're already resilient as a person, so therefore they don't need to do anything about it. Or whatever they've heard, they think, well, that's not going to change anything really. Like, what does it matter if I go for lunch with a friend or whatever, right? And so it's in using the business analogy where I would say, okay, wait a second. If you were to launch a new product or a new service here, would you just have a great idea and go and launch it? Or would you have your great idea and look at who else is providing it? How much are they charging for it? How much people are willing to pay for it? Which forces could impact it? You're looking at all this, the context. So same thing here. We need to look at the context. We need to be strategic, so planful, proactive. And if we are the same way we are over here, then we actually have a chance at seeing very positive outcomes.
I think is so nuanced. And one application that is probably full transparency, the number one reason I wanted to chat with you was a lot of our listeners work deep in the environmental and social impact space. And I've definitely seen it over the years that when you're a professional working for an organization or a cause that you really, truly believe in as part of your values, sometimes that can almost take a bigger toll on you as an individual, as a professional, in the sense that you're so closely tied with the cause itself. Do you have any approaches that you recommend when it comes to those professionals working in the environmental or social impact space?
That is such a great point. And it's one that sometimes people miss because we assume that because we're so connected, so committed, engaged, it's exactly where we want to be. It's all the influences we want to have, and there's so much to do, and we are at the right place. It's wonderful in a number of ways. And that's true for us as leaders. It's often true for people in our teams, right? Same thing. And that is all very positive. What I think we need to do is to make sure we bring this conversation to the forefront, literally saying, it is fantastic that we are that committed, that is that aligned with our values. And because it is, we also need to make sure we're clear on where we're going to put boundaries. And because that is what is going to allow us to keep going over time, to sustain this wonderful influence and contribution that we're able to bring. And especially with sometimes people who are earlier in their careers on the teams that may not even see the size of this wave of how amazing this work is for them, and not yet realize that there will still be a point where we will need to say either no or not right now, or let's prioritize things differently. Let's make sure we pause. So I make sure I fill my tank again. here.
Mhm.
So having the open conversations help people make sense of their experience of, I want to say yes to everything. Everything needs a yes from me, to I'm still a human with limited resources, fabulous resources, and still limited. And to be able to keep going, we need to make sure we protect this. A term that sometimes can be useful is to think of it as boundaried generosity. Mhm.
Hmm.
So yes, you're bringing your whole self to this, still in a boundaried way, so you can keep going forward.
I've never heard that term before, but I think it is beautiful because it shows that, and probably a lot of people working in the values-based space just want to give and give and give, but it absolutely makes sense to have those boundaries in place as well. I would say our listeners of the Resilience Report are often in two camps. We have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen, and then we also have a lot of business leaders. So I would love to dive into both and see if your approach would be different. For entrepreneurs, obviously it is they're 24/7 thinking about their business, thinking about their baby. How do you approach building resilience for the entrepreneur base?
Yes. And there will be a lot of similarities
Mhm.
between the two, because often when we accept senior leadership roles, it feels like we are owning,
You're right.
that piece, and so that there is this element of my name's all over this in a positive way, like in a
Yeah.
I'm giving it all I got type of way. So there are similarities. What's even more present for entrepreneurs is the challenge of putting limits. At least for the leader, there's usually a bit of more of a structure around.
Mhm.
Sometimes there is a culture that will create a 24/7 incentive. So therefore, it's not necessarily always protective. Um, but there can be some structure that may help at times. On the entrepreneur side, that structure needs to come from you. And as the entrepreneur, you can see constantly the endless ways in which you could give to what you're building. And so, which again, usually works for a period of time at the beginning, is understandable throughout. However, the only way to sustain the highest level of contribution is to make sure you also protect time to ensure you're nourishing the other sides of your life. So that does include, yes, building your own resilience. It also includes time that, as it relates to your values, hence looking at your values when you create a plan. There may be other things that are important for you. Maybe there is volunteer work that you've been involved in that still nourishes your soul, even if this over here is asking a lot of your soul. There could be people in your life that you want to make sure you spend time with, children you want to be around, whatever. And so that's why when we're making a plan, and whether you're looking at it from an entrepreneur perspective or leader, you will want to start with your values, because it's not just about, say no and go take care of yourself. Just that is not going to make us do it. What makes
Mhm.
us do things is when it connects with what for each of us is our values, our particular context, where we're going now. And that context may change between now and 3 months from now. And if we're realistic with this, then we can run.